Okay, cool. So Pope sees this as being sort of that reality is how you test art. It's at once the source and end and test of art. Um, reality copies, art copies reality. That's the source. It's the end, meaning its purpose is that it's a reflection of reality. That art is like a mirror, and that it's supposed to reflect reality back at itself. One way of looking at this is that art can, like when you make something, it shows you who you are. But also it's supposed to copy, right? When you make a picture, it's supposed to look like the person. And then if you want to see if it's good or not, the test of art is to look at reality and then look at art and see if they're connected. Or is the art anchored to reality? Um, and I think I mentioned this last time, but like most people only have like two ways of thinking about art, and one is it realistic? That's from Pope, and the other one is it's an emotional expression of the author. That's from Wordsworth, and we'll get to that. So this is, in some ways, this feels quite boring to study because it's something you probably already thought about art. But it's worth it to kind of look at where this comes from and to think about how this works. One of the things I want to point out here is that, and reading these things is like going to a party where you don't know anybody. And there's been conversations going on at the party because you didn't get there at the beginning, you got there in the middle. And people are talking. And so you have to kind of go into the conversations and listen to everybody talk, and then you kind of join in after a while. Reading these philosophers is like listening to the conversation, and it was happening before you were born, and it's going to happen after you're dead. But these are the people, and they're in conversation with each other. And if you don't understand that, it's going to be hard to understand Pope until you realize what he's doing, which is like Sidney, he's fighting with Plato. He's against Plato here. Although crucially and interestingly, he agrees and disagrees. You guys took 101. He somewhat agrees with Plato and somewhat disagrees with Plato. So we'll see where he's going with this. So he says, art from that fund each just supply provides, meaning art from the fund of reality is able to provide, reality provides everything for art. Works without show, meaning art shouldn't be super fancy or complicated. You're not inventing things, you're just copying stuff. And without pomp presides, means the same thing. Pomp and show are fancy. And he says it's not about being fancy, it's about being accurate. You're not supposed to invent all kinds of crazy things for your art. You're supposed to be copying reality, which is what is already there. And so it doesn't need you to invent all kinds of wackadoodle things. All right, cool. In some fair body, thus the informing soul with spirit feeds, with vigor fills the whole. So he feels like art is like a body, but the soul comes from Mother Nature. It feeds with spirit, it fills it with vigor. So your art will be vigorous, meaning strong, and it'll have like a spirit to it if it's connected to Mother Nature. Because again, why does Mother Nature have so much spirit and vigor? Because it comes from God. Each motion, with spirit feeds, with vigor fills the whole. Each motion guides and every nerve sustains. So it's sort of like if you base it on reality, it'll be strong and connected. Itself unseen, but in the effect remains. So you don't necessarily see reality or Mother Nature or God in art, but it's still there as if you treat it like a guiding force. Some to whom heaven in wit has been profuse, meaning some people, heaven gave intelligence, a lot of intelligence to some people. Some to whom heaven in wit has been profuse want as much more to turn it to its use. So some people are like too smart, and because they're overly smart, they don't want to copy reality. They want to invent all kinds of things. And Pope is against this. He thinks they're being pretentious, they're being showy, they're full of pomp, they're super fancy. Because you're so smart, it's not good enough for you to just copy the world that God gave you. You have to invent all of these ludicrous, crazy, nonsensical things. And he thinks if they're not connected to Mother Nature, if they're not connected to reality, if they're not connected to God, then it's just a bunch of crazy nonsense you came up with for like a ridiculous. He's thinking some ridiculous cartoon where there's all these invented aliens and creatures and wackadoodle stuff that doesn't make any sense. He really thinks things should be connected to reality, to Mother Nature, and to God. He says it right here. For wit and judgment often are at strife. Judgment is choosing to do the right thing. Intelligence is being so smart that you want to just do anything you can do. Actually, here's the way to put it. Actually, I'm a perfect way to explain this. This is a good bit. For wit and judgment often are at strife, though meant each other's aid, like man and wife. So there's a little heteronormativity for everybody. So he says, wit and judgment often are at strife. Wit is intelligence, and judgment is making the correct choice. So he says, like, if you think about intelligence and wit as being, it tells you what you can do, right? It's what you can do. Judgment is choosing what you should do. These are quite different. And the best illustration, and I'm being ridiculous now, but he says, for wit and judgment often are at strife, meaning what you can do is often at odds with what you should do. And they fight with each other. They're supposed to be like man and wife, heteronormativity. They're supposed to help each other. They're supposed to one is supposed to guide the other. They're supposed to be connected. But for a lot of people, wit and judgment are fighting with each other. And the best example of this is Jurassic Park. If you've ever seen a Jurassic Park movie, this is the whole point. In fact, if I was going to pick one quote to summarize all of Jurassic Park, I would pick this quote from Alexander Pope. Wit and judgment often are at strife. The scientists in Jurassic Park, they have the wit, they have the intelligence to clone dinosaurs. But they don't have the judgment to realize that's a bad idea. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Yes, we know you're able to clone the dinosaurs, but maybe don't clone them because they're going to eat everybody and escape the park and destroy everyone. So that's a great example of what he's talking about. Wit and judgment often are at strife. I'm probably the first person in human history to use Jurassic Park to explain a poem from 1711, but there you go. That's how my brain works. All right, cool. By the way, my favorite joke in all of COVID has been somebody saying, they were like, I owe an apology to the makers of Jurassic Park because it turns out it's totally realistic that rich people would open a park that they know to be extremely dangerous to the people who go there. Because a lot of people before COVID had complained like it was unreal. Actually, we're on Pope. People had complained it was unrealistic in Jurassic Park. Because when you get to like Jurassic Park 3 and 4 and the sequels and all, there's like 5 of them or 6 of them now. But when you get to the sequels, you're like, I can't believe they're reopening this park after the previous movies where the dinosaurs ate everybody. And people said this is unrealistic. Where are they getting that complaint from? Alexander Pope said art should be realistic. And they were like, these Jurassic Park movies, I don't believe that people would open a park after all the people got eaten a couple of years ago. But then with COVID, it turned out people wanted to open Disneyland even though it would make everyone sick. Because why? Because they're rich people and they want to make money. And so somebody was like, you know what? After COVID now, maybe it is completely realistic that people would open Jurassic Park after it got everybody killed. Because if you look at the real world, it turns out people will open Disney World even though it's going to expose people to COVID. So I don't know. It seems like I'm off topic, but I'm not. I'm talking about realism in art and complaints that Jurassic Park was not sufficiently realistic. And it turns out, it is realistic. People would 100% open that park again. Okay, cool. This is going good. So he says, "'Tis more to guide than spur the muse's steed, restrain his fury than provoke his speed. The winged courser, like a generous horse, shows most true mettle when you check his course." Meaning the intelligence is supposed to restrain all of your ideas. You're supposed to, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. You should be using your intelligence to sort of guide. It's not supposed to make you do more. And he compares it like a horse with wings, a winged courser, like a Pegasus or something. You're supposed to the best way to ride a horse like that with wings is to check his course. You got to control that thing. So in the same way, if you have intelligence that's giving you all these good ideas, you got to use judgment to control it. So you don't write a poem that's filled with a bunch of crazy wackadoodle stuff that makes no sense. Because again, even though you can do it, should you do it? So Pope would really, I think, if you think about movies that are very unrealistic, and really cartoons are so silly and ridiculous, and they're like wacky, right? Bugs Bunny pulls a hammer, suddenly he's got a giant mallet, and it's like, wow, where did he get that from? It doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure you guys can think of all kinds of unrealistic things in movies. So, but that's the kind of thing Pope, you would imagine. He didn't see any movies; they weren't invented yet. But he wouldn't like that. So, all right, I'll pick you up in the next video. Thanks for watching all these, by the way.